We're live. Welcome in, everybody. It's Friday, March 10th, 1 o'clock Central, 1:02 Central. Make sure you can hear us okay. Make sure you can see us okay. I just came from a career fair at our local middle school. Our neighbor's kid was there, and I went as a YouTuber. And I want to give a huge shout out to Cody. Cody, if you're watching this, I hope Aaron and Travis have this picture pulled up. It was awesome to see you there and all your classmates. It was, oh man, I have a sheet of paper. I'm supposed to shout out a bunch of kids. Dang. Okay, producer wife, if you can find that, we'll do that later this show. But yeah, it was awesome kind of seeing all the kids there that had a bunch of questions. I was getting compared to Mr. Beast a lot, which really destroyed my confidence. It was great. That was really fun. But no, it was super fun to talk to all the kids. Brilliant school here, man. Everybody there is so cool. But anyway, just wanted to give a shout out to Cody and all his classmates. Thank you so much for coming out. I hope y'all had fun. And yeah, a lot to talk about today in the world of Tesla. A lot of things. I'm here joined by Hans, Billy, Brian, Kuba, community members, all these folks support the channel and they're part of our private Discord. If you want to be part of these discussions, you can join right below this video by clicking on join. You'll get access to the private Discord, and you also get access to member-only content, which will go live right after this forum is done. And one of the cool things we're doing is half of the earnings from these community forums on Fridays go to a community fund where the community, the folks on this panel, plus all the other ones watching from home, get to decide what to do with those funds. We can freaking eat ice cream. We can eat 17,000 pounds of ice cream, or we can build a school. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Okay. So, but yeah, thank you all very much for supporting the channel. I do want to get started with welcoming in Billy. This is Billy's first time on these public community forums. It's not scary at all. And he clearly looks calm and collected because he's cool. So welcome in Billy. And there's Cody again. Hi, Cody. Welcome in, Billy. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. It's my pleasure. My pleasure. So the thing I want to get started with is Cybertruck. So there was a video that was released today from, oh my God, he's got 3 first names. It was one of those things. Never trust a guy with 3 first names. I'm kidding. Matthew Donegan Ryan. If we can pull up his video, producer wife, when you get a chance, I've linked the YouTube channel. So Matthew Donegan Ryan published a video 2 hours ago. If you don't follow him, be sure to follow him on YouTube. And he unveiled a bunch of information about the Cybertruck that was not previously known. And some of the highlights, which I'll go through very quickly, is we've got some pretty accurate dimensions of what the production Cybertruck's going to be, which is going to be fascinating to talk through. Another highlight is that all Cybertrucks will come standard with all-wheel steering. It will also have a 6-foot bed, which is about half a foot longer than your standard F-150 crew cabs. We knew that, but we basically got confirmation. We also got confirmation that it will be a 5-seat configuration, not a 6-seat configuration. And then that Tesla, this was the one that really surprised me, was that Tesla has its own accessories team in-house, vertically integrated. And a lot of the reason why is so that they can really leverage the new 48-volt architecture, which would have been tough to do by bringing on other, say, a third party to do accessories, because most of the car supply chain and accessory market is really built on the old, I guess, 12-volt infrastructure, or whatever you want to call that. So let's go ahead and pull up. We'll start with the specs, producer wife, the picture I sent you on Discord. When you get a second, if you can pull that up, and we'll go through that first. But Hans, Billy, Kuba, or Brian, I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch this video. We'll kind of walk through the different things we've heard. But who wants to sort of share some thoughts as I have this up? Any thoughts you took away from this video? Anything you'd like to hone in specifically from the panel? Any questions or comments as we read this?
I have not seen the video yet.
Okay. Hans, I know you saw some of it, watched some of it. What were some of the things that you took away?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway that was exciting was the fact that essentially, so Matthew is a Raptor owner. I think he's owned, maybe he said 2 Raptors already. He's owned 6 F-150s, and I know he talked about at least one of them, if not multiples, being Raptors. That he's looking at the Cybertruck as being essentially a direct equivalent to a Raptor, at least on the performance spec version, which he thought would probably be a tri-motor more than likely. He's not apparently in conversations that he had with management team, it's not necessarily going to be or it's not definitively going to be a quad motor. It may be a tri-motor. But anyways, that the upper level trim of the Cybertruck is going to be, basically outperform the Raptor in almost every way. And then it's, got a 6-inch longer bed for a wheelbase and overall dimensions that are slightly less than a Raptor. The pneumatic suspension is going to be able to give Baja performance. So a lot of cool things there. And then, we'll have to see what they come in at with pricing. But based on the fact that many of the innovations that Tesla unveiled at Investor Day to basically simplify manufacturing in the Gen 3 platform have already been implemented in the Cybertruck. And so we know that, the Cybertruck has this 48 volt architecture instead of 12. We know that the Cybertruck has an increased number of in-house manufactured electronics modules. We know that obviously it has no paint shop. It may be that they can even implement some of the modular assembly that they talked about for Gen 3 platform, where they can do the rear casting with the seats and assemble that as a module, the front casting and the whole front of the car assembly, and then do something. The one question that I have is with the exoskeleton, I don't know that they can do the side panel assembly as modularly as they showed in the Model Y visualization during the presentation. So there may be increased efficiency on the smaller car assembly than is possible with the Cybertruck, just due to the nature of the exoskeleton. But basically all of that says that they should be able to offer this in a pure electric drivetrain vehicle at a price point that actually is lower than the Raptor and outcompetes it, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. And I think this is the thing that is missed by a lot of the pundits and analysts, that they're all expecting Tesla to bring vehicles into the market that are not significantly greater value for the price than their direct competitors. And it's just like they forget that the Model Y or the Model 3 vastly outcompete their ICE equivalents. And so, someone from Morgan Stanley can think that, hey, we're going to sell 50,000 Cybertrucks. But if you can sell a Cybertruck that is better than a Raptor at the price that's only slightly more than the base F-150, consumers are going to take notice. Like, that's not something that's going to sell 50,000 units, which is less than like the Model S and the X, which are more expensive and less capable vehicles. I mean, if you talk to any sort of fleet operator, this is going to be a shoo-in and a no-brainer. Like, the economic case writes itself. So anyways, those were my big takeaways from watching the video and analyzing Investor Day and a lot of the post-event nonsense.
Any other thoughts from the panel? Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so I did write that article on the economic case analysis. So I have that in the chat. So basically, I took the a formula from a journal of energy or whatever, and got the formula, which is was used by other YouTubers. There was a guy who did, Engineering Explained, whatever, who used that formula, and basically take the aerodynamics, the cross section, coefficient of drag. So the things that, when you know the dimensions of the vehicle, then you can get to the efficiency. And I use it off the base of, you apply that formula to the Tesla Semi. So we know the Tesla Semi can drive, 530 miles under load for the 500-mile version, roughly 1,000 kilowatt hours, maybe down to 900 something. And when you apply that formula to it, it's depending upon the speed they drove. So if they drove at 52 miles an hour or they drove at 60 miles per hour, the different efficiencies, right? So if they drove faster, which they were on section, because they say they were driving 60 miles, overtaking a vehicle, they were driving faster for parts of it, but we don't know the entire average speed of it. if they said, okay, they were driving 60 miles per hour, then that 500-mile some drive was 13% off optimal for this formula, right? If they drove slower, then it's 27% off optimal, right? Because then the slower speed when you had more efficiency anyway. So they've said that they would use the plaid motors and the drivetrain for the Cybertruck, right? So the Tesla Semi shows that the Tesla engines, Tesla motors and drivetrain, 1,000-volt system, whatever like that, can have this level of efficiency where basically the weight you move does not impact the range. Because basically an empty semi, which would be about like 10 tons, 11 tons or something like that, maybe 12 tons. An empty one would only get like 650 miles of range, right? So you go from 650 down to 550. So basically you increase the weight by, almost 4x, and it still doesn't drop the range that much because it is built to move stuff. Similarly, the Cybertruck would have that too. By my calculation, a combined weight of Cybertruck, 6,000 pounds, 6,500 pounds, with 100 kilowatt hours of batteries, even 200 kilowatt hours of batteries, also moving payload of up to like 9,000 pounds, get to 50,000 pounds, you drop from 500 miles of range down to 400 some miles of range, right?
That's it.
That's almost nothing, right? So in context, a Ford F-150 gasoline version typically has a 23-gallon tank. It drives 20 miles empty, and it drops down to 9 miles per gallon with a big payload, right? So then that means it goes from 460 miles of range down to 207, right? The Ford Lightning goes from 300 some miles of range or 250 and drops down below 100. You can watch YouTubers who own those vehicles say, and then I pulled something, I put something in the payload thing, and the mileage when I'm pulling something, moving something drops massively for the Ford Lightning, right? But same thing for the Model X, same thing for the Rivian. The Rivian and the Model X do better than the Ford Lightning, but still not as great and not as good as the gasoline vehicle. So when I talk to contractors, oh yeah, I'm not necessarily considering, I was considering Lightning before because it looked like it would be the work vehicle, but then it doesn't tow anything, so I can't get it, right? So, talking to guys who have work trucks say, I cannot get it because it doesn't tow stuff. I need to put stuff into it. It needs to move range. So if you use the semi-tech with the motor and drivetrain, even if I make, I gave, assumptions of, 15% capacity, extra capacity, other assumptions to not say it's the optimal thing, right? That it will outrange a Ford vehicle. There's, some platinum things, other things we get a bigger fuel tank, and then that still goes down to 300 some miles. So they can compete with these high-end things. If you get a super duper tank, 60, then you can start outranging the Cybertruck. Yeah.
So let me try to conceptualize this, and then I'll throw it over to you, Hans, real quick. So the whatever tech they're using in semi today, which we have numbers for, where we would know how much is pulling a full load. That technology for the battery and the drivetrain and the powertrain seems to allow it to go very far under load, especially versus current gas cars and things like the Rivian, the Model X, and other cars as well. So if the thought process is if you move the tech from the semi into the Cybertruck and you use the same technology, then under full load, the Cybertruck should be able to pull just as long, if not longer, than the equivalent gas truck because of those breakthroughs in the drivetrain. Is that
correct?
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
that's correct.
Got it. Hans, go for it.
So my questions on that are really twofold. Based on my understanding of physics, the reason that semi can be so efficient is that they have the best in class regen capability. And so, if you're accelerating that mass in the semi, but then you capture all the energy that you put into it on the regen, that you can get really good range. And then the second part that is very unique to semi that we're not going to have in Cybertruck is that it's both loaded and unloaded frontal area and aerodynamic profile are going to be the same. Whereas with the Cybertruck, obviously, if you're not pulling a trailer, you have one aerodynamic profile versus if you are pulling a trailer, you have a very different aerodynamic profile. And so you can't necessarily say, unless you've got some sort of a trailer that is as small, like if you're pulling a pop-up potentially that is a low drag pop-up, that you might be able to kind of match your aerodynamic profile loaded and unloaded, or if you're only carrying something in the bed. So yeah, how do those things play in as far as you can tell?
Right. So definitely, if you change the aerodynamics, if I'm pulling a shipping container, right, then the cross section increases to 9 feet by 8 feet, can go 72 instead of being about like 35 square feet now, right? So if I increase the cross section, right, then the efficiency drops, I think, roughly in line with the increased cross section. So if I double the cross section, then I half the range.
Yeah,
right?
It's proportional. And then the other factor is also you'll have a completely different coefficient of drag too, because if the trailer is not made to be aerodynamic like the Cybertruck itself.
Right. So thus, I believe there's a massive business and opportunity for companies to make aerodynamic trailers for EVs, right? That you would want to do that. You probably want to do that for a gasoline vehicle too, because they are also fighting physics as well, right? So the formula takes into account, what slopes, if you're going uphill, downhill, stuff like that. You can say, okay, I go from flat, neutral wind, blah, 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 to I'm now pulling this other thing. So yes, you definitely would want to reduce your aerodynamic impacts beyond if it's behind and you cannot connect it. So if you have the vehicle going like this, you'd want to have a integration, just the way the semi kind of smoothly integrates to the shipping container, right? I'd want to integrate that thing in with, having those kind of like flap things that kind of fold down or do whatever to integrate to the rear thing. And then if it's a cross section stays the same, then I can still tow a large amount and not have that impact. So, but the better than F-150 thing, even if I make the I can because I say 400 miles, so I can get half as bad. I could have aerodynamics half as bad, drag coefficients, other things totaling up to, half as good as a bare Cybertruck, and I'm still getting like 200 miles, right? So way better than I think it's all those other things. If I'm doing a Ford Lightning and I'm towing this big thing, my range is dropping way down. It's going down to 70, 60. It's same thing for cold weather. All the things that affect stuff affects all the other EV trucks as well, right? And you're starting from this high base of I can start tossing more weight onto it and having virtually no impact. If the impact is the aerodynamics and the cross section. Right?
That makes sense, especially once you get going, right? Like once you get going, it's all aerodynamics. Let's do Billy and then Kuba.
Well, I just had a quick question on when making those calculations. Going back to the semi, they have the two kind of torque motors and then the one cruising motor. Would that only be available on that tri-motor pickup or Cybertruck, and then the dual motor or the single motor that wouldn't have that kind of changing motor that makes it more efficient when you're cruising?
So I believe you would need to get, comparable to semi, you would need a 3 or 4 motor configuration of some kind, right? Where it engages, disengages, and does whatever. What does Tesla do with a 2 motor or 1 motor? I don't know, right? How much efficiency do you get from getting the 1,000-volt drivetrain? Other stuff like that, unclear. I think a lot of it has to do with having a tuned plaid engine to torque load, to have that, get it moving. I believe a lot of the efficiency is related to that. We will see when it comes out. But so the interesting thing about, and it goes to that 50,000 cult car thing that Morgan Stanley put out, is that if I'm correct, based on physics formulas and putting semi-tech into that thing, like let's say the high-end version of Cybertruck with semi-tech costs an extra 40K, 50K, whatever, right? That immunity to weight, a payload, means that I can make it an official class 4, class 3 vehicle, right? I can have it move. A class 4 vehicle means 15,000 pounds combined weight. Vehicle, Cybertruck, 6,000 pounds, 7,000 pounds, plus the payload, get up to 15,000 pounds. That's a class 4 vehicle. So I'm pretty sure that the Inflation Reduction Act means instead of $7,500 for a regular car, truck-like vehicles moving whatever, even class 4 can get the $40,000, right? So now $30,000 of that. Other things is California has something called HVIP, and New York has something too. Class 4 vehicles off that, like, so you get like $150,000, $120,000 off for a class 8 vehicle off the California, the New York thing, but class 4 vehicle still gets $60,000. So federal and the state ones,
you can get Cybertruck for free.
$100,000.
No way.
If you have, but the issue would be that they seem to top out at like $2 billion, $4 billion. So the first people to go for work trucks, so you get the semi trucks, if you're making them in volume, you get Cybertrucks and stuff like that. So the federal thing, the 40K for 10 years until they wipe that out, is giving cyber work trucks 40K off. And then certain states, certain provinces, certain countries, whatever like that, if they're giving class 4 goodies out, until that runs out, Cybertruck work trucks can suck those out too. So initially 100K.
Okay. Let me just make sure I get this straight, Brian, because you just said something that's a little worrisome. Okay. So you're saying that if Cybertruck classifies as a class 4, which means that it can pull 15,000 pounds.
Right.
Is that the net weight is 15,000 pounds?
Gross weight combined.
Right? Gross weight combined.
Yeah.
Yep. Is 15,000 pounds. That the Cybertruck in the United States would be eligible for a $40,000 tax credit through the federal government and a $60,000 tax credit through the California government.
And New York.
Right. And New York.
Right. Until the California thing is only funded for a couple $1 billion. So, you'd blow through those in, 5,000, 10,000, whatever vehicles of class 8, class 4s.
What's the likelihood, and Kuba, I swear to God, I'll go to you next, I promise. What's the likelihood that Cybertruck will classify for class 4?
I see that as a free thing for Tesla to make their top end version, their Halo vehicle at the top end. Like, why wouldn't you go for that? And then the other thing would be, if I have this beast top end version vehicle, then I have a halo effect. All the work guys saying, "Oh, I'm not sure if I want a Cybertruck. It looks too pretty, blah blah blah." And it's like, this thing is moving, shipping containers. It's moving massive payloads. Then it thinks, okay, it becomes a beast, right? So the Cybertruck beast is, even if I only sell 10,000 of them, whatever, that whole, the work truck guys know it is the one I want, right?
Kuba, then Hans. I don't know how to wrap my head around this. Kuba, then Hans. Go.
Neither do I. After such a bombshell, I just had a tiny tidbit to add regarding aerodynamics, coming back to the previous discussion. How important is aerodynamics? I can give you an example from my own experience, because I have a Model 3, long range, and I have a tow hook on which I sometimes transport some bikes. And so 3 bikes, let's say they weigh 100 pounds, so it's not a weight issue, but just those bikes at the back of the car, the highway range falls from about 200 pounds to 120, just because of the aerodynamics. So that's very mightily important.
Hans, go for it. Unless you're.
I'm just looking. So I'm looking at Ford's website. I just Googled Ford Class 4 pickup truck, and it seems to be telling me that the F650 is the lowest Class 4 Ford truck. The gas 650 uses a 7.3 liter V8 that makes 335 horsepower and 468 foot-pounds of torque. We know definitively that the Plaid powertrain makes much more horsepower and much more torque than those specs. And so the question is the suspension able to, they have to go with a very beefy frame and suspension in order to be able to support towing trailers that have the type of both tongue weight and just overall weight. But I don't know, Brian just dropped this on us, so I hadn't had much time to think about it, but I don't think it's completely outside the realm of possibilities that a Cybertruck could
So real quick, let me pull up a link and then we'll go to Billy. Can you pull up that link I just put in the private chat? And Brian, if you can find, I'm trying to find this class for $40,000 EV credit. So if you can find the source for me, that would be fantastic. Because I don't know. I don't know what to do. It basically means free trucks for everybody in California and New York. So Congress approves incentive boost for EV truck purchases. Biden expected to sign bill providing tax credit for up to $40,000 per truck. This is as of August 12th, 2022. So this is right around when the bill was passed. This is the IRA tax credit. So scroll down a little bit to the area that is highlighted in purple and then zoom in for me so we can all read this together. Zoom in as much as you can. Keep going. Can you do a couple more there, producer wife? Let's see how far you can get in there. Stupid ad. Thank you. So in addition to providing grants for zero emission port equipment, medium and heavy duty trucks, including those used for long haul freight, can take advantage of tax credits in the bill for both electric vehicle purchases and for purchasing and installing battery charging infrastructure. The EV purchase tax credit covers either the vehicle's incremental cost, the price difference between a diesel truck and the electric counterpart, or 30% of the truck's purchase price, whichever is less. The incentive is capped at $40,000 per vehicle purchase. The infrastructure credit provides up to $100,000 per charger. So I guess it's a different setup. But because new heavy-duty electric trucks can cost $300,000 and up, the legislation seems to be geared more towards incentivizing the purchase of smaller vehicles such as cargo vans or box trucks used for short-haul package delivery in urban areas. Bea Spiller, director of the transportation program at the nonprofit research group for the future, which studies the implications of vehicle electrification. Okay, very good. Scroll down a little bit more for me. Let's keep going. Okay. The cost differential between EVs and internal combustion engine long-haul trucks can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, with $40,000 being a fraction of the cost differential. Whether this will move the needle for larger long-haul trucks remains to be seen. So, okay, so and then it says the third paragraph down, where the quotes start in the middle there. At the same time, I question whether a $40,000 incentive for a new fully electric Class 7 or Class 8 vehicle, which can be 3 times the cost of a diesel fuel equivalent, will be enough to make a difference. So I'm trying. Can you search for Class 4?
So maybe it doesn't do Class 4. Maybe you have to have a Class 7 vehicle because if a vehicle weight greater than 14,000 pounds. So the semi, by my calculation, 23,000 pounds. So if you drop down to 14,000, then the trailer, the thing pulling the thing, has to be 14,000 pounds. So then you have to have a Class 6 or 7 vehicle in order to get the 40K.
Got it.
If there's other things that Class 4s, and definitely Class 4, California and New York qualify. I would have expected more stuff at the federal level for the Class 4. There is California laws about or regulations that they have to phase out all or large chunks of the commercial gasoline trucks by certain dates. They 20% by 2030 or 2025. So they have some stuff where they're forcing electrification. I thought those rules classified for Class 4 as well as 5, 6, 7, 8 whatever vehicles.
Okay.
So if there was something in there, and again, this goes into the weeds of like what's in that regulation thing and what qualifies for Class 4. Because if you give this much for Class 7, 8, do you give nothing for Class 4? That was a surprise because they gave stuff for half as much for California, New York.
Okay.
So that was
Okay, that's good to know. And then producer wife, I don't know how difficult this is going to be, but see if you can find anything related specifically to Class 4 EV tax credits. That's part of the IRA, the federal credits. See if we can figure out what the heck it's supposed to be, and I'll ask Bing as well. Maybe I can't wait for it to give me the wrong answer. And does anybody else have thoughts around this? And in the comments too, if you have any info on this that we can dig into, that would be amazing. But what we know for sure, it's at least $7,500 tax credit. That's like totally in the bag, no problems.
And
no
then I have
questions
the
asked.
California HVIP thing. I put that into the chat. And then there's a New York one. So those ones, when you filter for permitted Class 4 vehicles, so you have to get the vehicle, file the paperwork, and then they approve it. So there's a delay. So it's not just like all Class 4 vehicles. You have to
I guess signed off
on it. Yeah, and then same thing for I think for New York. But when the Class 4 is clearly there, are $60,000 of tax credit when you qualify.
Copy. Go ahead, Billy.
My question is, how many other companies are actually competing for these credits? Because at some point the funding for it will run out. But is that just like Rivian with their 100,000 Amazon trucks and the Nikola EV1? Like what else is there out there?
Nikola, they indicated they sold like 100 vehicles or something. I think they produced 200 of the electric truck and sold 100. And they also said in this last earnings thing, or with them SEC filing, that they're at risk of running out of cash, based on their burn rate and based on how much cash they have left. They have like 6 to 12 months of cash left. But yeah, so there are, I have the list of all the semi trucks and stuff who are going for these things, Freightliner, Volvo, etc. So yeah, companies are going for those credits and stuff.
But it doesn't seem like there's going to be any companies that are planning on doing the production capacity that Tesla should be coming out with for the Cybertruck, because their stated goal is 300,000 right after it's ramped up, and that should take about 2 years from when they start delivering. Should be at that run rate. So it seems like the lion's shares of these subsidies would be going to Tesla, kind of like how they've already gotten. They're going to be getting the lion's share of the EV $7,500 tax credit just because they have so many out there for so much production capacity.
Yeah. So even if the California and the New York tax credits run out at a few $1 billion, it's only for a few thousand, 10,000 vehicles, something like that. I still feel that that Tesla would want to create this, premium towing thing with the semi-tech. Even if the semi-tech end up bumping up the price, $40K, right? Then it's worth it because I think the F450 costs like $120,000, F650 costs $150,000. They're expensive. Actually, sometimes more expensive than the low end diesel full semi trucks, right? Those premium mega pickup trucks are more expensive than the semis, because the diesel semis are in the $110,000 to $150,000 range, and the other ones are that high price. So having something that is F450, F350, F550 competitor, to say we can do this thing and it moves a ton of stuff, it's worth it, I think, to have that be, just to show this is to break the psychology of these EV things are underpowered or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions on this or comments on the classification of the trucks before we go into other parts of the Cybertruck? What do you guys think about the? Go ahead, Hans.
I was just going to say that, I know that Elon mentioned at the investor day that the 20 million vehicle target was including roughly 10 models, but we do have to take into account the number of variations that exist inside of different models currently. And I wouldn't be surprised, if we do see like a van, like a medium duty van truck thing from Tesla that does have a number of variants in it that covers a wide variety of commercial use cases. And then, the same I expect to be true for, there will be a variety of compacts that are, in Elon's mind, are all subcategories of the compact model. And so I don't expect it to be like 10 trim levels in 2030 that sell 20 million vehicles.
Yeah, one point I have on that is that in that diagram of their estimate of the future state, right, and total addressable market of 300 million Cybertrucks and vans and SUVs, I presume, in that 300 million thing, the large vehicle segment. If my theory is that because they have this engine motor drivetrain superiority, which is something that they've had all along for all their vehicles, that's the sustainable, that that class of vehicles, those 300 million vehicles, is something that is something that they can get the dominance similar to the dominance that they have in the United States of 70% market share there, or even higher, because the bigger, heavier vehicles, semi-trucks and these other big Cybertrucks, is something that plays to all of the engineering strengths that that Tesla has of the big powerful vehicle. The expedition replacements, all those kind of things will be, I think, something that Tesla will dominate once they get the ramp up of production, once they can execute on that. Because at the low end, the China car maker, the BYD and stuff like that, they'll sell for no profit in order to try and hold on to that market share. But if they can't execute for the big truck, the semi, and for the heavy Cybertruck, then that segment, which is half of the U.S. market or more, and that 300 million, that Tesla gets 200 million of that, and then the unit volume thing of 20 million vehicles, if it's 10, 12 million small 25K vehicles versus 4 million, 6 million Cybertruck, Cybervans, heavy vehicles that are at the 3x, 5x cost of like 75K to 125K, that's can be once I get to that 3 million vehicles of that, I get multiplied by 3, that's 9 million. That more profit, more dominance from a fewer number of vehicles, because I'm basically introducing a high volume Model X, Model S. I'm selling it for comparable prices.
Yep.
But I got volumes way up.
That's not well understood.
The one caveat to that being that the lithium supply necessary to build those larger vehicles also similarly increases. And so if we run into a lithium or other battery raw materials bottleneck, that definitely interferes with Tesla's ability to ramp to those levels of production of those larger form factor vehicles.
My thought, though, is wouldn't it kind of line up with Tesla's mission to go for those highest polluting vehicles first? Like, that's why they're doing the semi. It's, such a small percent of sales, but such a high percent of emissions. I'm sure these, F-350s, 650s are all kind of up there in as far as how much pollution is actually emitted and how much CO2 is emitted from those vehicles. So I think by them going after this market makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, those vehicles make up roughly 5% of the fleet, and yet they account for roughly 20% plus of total emissions. And so, yeah, that's right on the money. There's quite a bit of emissions that come from those vehicles, partly because they have high utilization, and then also just because they are larger vehicles that produce more emissions while they're running. So the thing in my mind is, okay, when does robotaxi become feasible? Because if you can increase the utilization of a small battery pack in a normal size vehicle to 5x, then you can essentially offset the same percentage of carbon emissions with a robotaxi that you can with a larger vehicle, but you can do it in a much smaller battery pack. You can ramp up production a lot quicker, and then you can get to those heavy vehicles later on in the ramp once you've solved the lithium supply bottlenecks. But then, if we can't get to robotaxi in the near future, then it does, I would say, pull forward plans to go into larger vehicles quicker.
What do you guys think of the fact that the margin implications of everything we're talking about are going to be completely insane, and nobody still gets it. Like, how is that? Like, just a conversation we're going through right now. We're talking about the consumer side benefiting, the environment benefiting, and all this stuff. But then the thing that keeps coming back to my head is, like, from an investment perspective, it just seems like Tesla continues to accumulate these technology advantages that are going to show up on the balance sheet and in the P&L at some point, and nobody's talking about it. And the rhetoric is always, well, the more cars they sell, the less margin they'll make. The more cars and I keep hearing this over and over and over again now, and this is becoming like the new goalpost of the bear thesis. It's like, well, yeah, they are going to get to 20 million, but at what margin? They're going to need 10,000 models, I don't know. And this Cybertruck discussion we're having right now, it's like, how is this thing not going to sell at least 1 million units a year, probably more? Based on Tesla's own slide, if you break out the proportionality of the cars versus the entire market, they're saying Cybertruck could get to 2 to 3 million if it's proportionally correct, or if it's like, if it's proportional to the rest of the business, and if it really becomes this vehicle that's going to be able to pull 15,000 pounds, and it's going to cost a fraction to operate in a competing car, and it offers all these advantages like every other Tesla does. I don't know. Go ahead, Billy. I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, the whole economic case for semi is that it's economic suicide to not get it. Would it be similar, because it's mostly companies and fleets buying these higher class vehicles? Would it be that same sort of economic suicide? Like, if you don't get a Cybertruck, your company will be at a disadvantage compared to the companies that do have it. Like, it could be the same sort of business case justification where it doesn't make fiscal sense to not get it. So
true. The economic forcing function that's already existing with the Model 3, as an example, versus a gas car of a lower class. So it's cheaper to run over 5 years than a Camry in a lot of cases. Why wouldn't the same thing apply to a Cybertruck, right? And other vehicles as well. Go ahead, Brian.
So the quick rule of thumb calculation in terms of the efficiency would be that if I'm charging outside and paying wholesale prices for electricity, then it's ballparking. It's like I'm paying $1.70 for my diesel instead of $5-6.
Crazy.
So if oil prices collapse, then just the efficiency thing may not happen. But based on our current situation, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And then if I'm driving 60,000 miles, 100,000 miles for the semi-truck, then that difference of $3 a gallon, $4 a gallon, that shows up quickly. But then there's the axis of charging. Like, if I buy my solar and I buy the battery packs to do the charging and do some stuff, and I'm home charging, then that one-time purchase is, taken care of. Like, I bought 2,000 gallons of fuel, or my lifetime fuel package, and I have a card where I get, all my always free charging. So it's how you calculate that out of the benefit of it. So the work trucks, if I'm using it for 40,000 miles, and I would have had 4,000 gallons, something like that, like 10 miles per gallon, something like that, then that is times 5, $20,000 versus per year, or something like that. Yeah, something like that. So then the electricity on the vehicle would be at that lower amount of like 4,000, probably like $6,000, $8,000, something like that. And if I prepaid it, prepaid all the solar and stuff like that, it's a one-time cost where I can charge it overnight and stuff like that. So that changes those calculations.
Go ahead, Billy.
And according to Adam Jonas, 50 to 100,000. I mean, there's
shout out Adam Jonas.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Adam Jonas, let's get you on one of these panels, bro. Who would love to talk to you and pick your brain more on that. To me, it is a surefire. This thing is going to be such a giant surefire success. It's not even going to be it's not going to. It's it's over.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hans.
Yeah, I think about margin basically just as a function of the competitive landscape. And so the real question, as far as what are the terminal margins that they can charge, is okay, who's able to compete with a product that offers the same amount of economic value that a Tesla offers at a similar price point? If you don't see any competitors who are going to be able to deliver vehicles in volume that offer the same type of economics, then Tesla's ability to charge margins to where they actually capture the economic value that they're providing rather than that going to their end customer is increased. So yeah, I mean, that's what, when I read Drew Dixon's threads or some of these other people, and they're just assuming mean reversion, which, you know, that's not, I mean, there's a huge historical precedent to assume that mean reversion is going to happen. But that's why I watch the Joe Justice channels and the Sandy Monroe channel so intently, is because I'm trying to see, okay, exactly how incredible is Tesla's technology and culture lead. And then I want to see who else is out there who is able to compete with Tesla on those levels. You know, the thing that you posted earlier this week, Farzad, that people just continually forget about and they don't go back to, is that list of top engineering employers. Who wants to go work at GM? Who wants to go work at these other places? We really need to see that data globally, not just for the US, because that is a US centric thing. I want to know globally, where do the best engineers from China want to go work? Where do the best engineers from Europe want to go work? Like, that would be a great data point for us to have, because I do know that there are a lot of international employers who are sucking up a lot of extremely smart talent. But based on what Sandy said about the actual manufacturing technology going into the BYDs is not very impressive. You know, that tells me that they're going to struggle to ever be able to compete with Tesla on the low end with, you know, Tesla is coming to the low end with a gross margin advantage based on the innovative manufacturing technology that they're bringing to the table. Whereas BYD is making things the same way that Legacy Auto, who's where they learned how to make those cars from. And so that doesn't mean that, you know, by 2030, that they're going to be able to produce a $25,000 model electric vehicle that is compelling and only cost them $17,000 to $20,000 to produce. They might be able to make that vehicle, but their COGS will be $23,000, $24,000, and they're going to have razor thin margins, which means that
with
Tesla,
government subsidies.
With government subsidies, yeah, and made in China labor. And so, you know, those are structural differences in the businesses that are not one-to-one. These are the first principles facts of the way that Tesla is architected in comparison to their competitors. And these are the things that analysts are completely missing and unable to see.
Yeah. And I think the big thing, and we'll go to Brian next here. And the big thing here is, even within that context, the feedback calc is like, well, that doesn't mean a 50 PE. I'm like, okay, so what does it mean then when you're doing 100, 150, $200 million of net income with your car selling at 20 million per year? You have your software on top of it. You're getting subsidies from the government for manufacturing batteries domestically. Then you layer on energy, and you layer on any other like, okay, so great. It's not a 50 PE on, but it's a 20 PE on 200 million net income. That's still a $4 trillion company on the low end. Like, that's the kind of, you know, go ahead.
Their cost basis of comparison for all these reductions,
Not financial advice,
are not financial advice, are from cars made split evenly between US production and Chinese production. So you do have some cheaper Chinese labor in there, but a lot of the base is American labor that is very expensive. And so as we continue to build out factories in places like Mexico, not even just the US, but California labor. So anyways, that's one more piece of the pie just to factor in.
So true. Go ahead, Brian.
So one thing that in terms of like anyone catching up or scaling, so for me, it's less about the 20 million vehicles, although I think they'll get beyond that. is that the current demand for globally for large trucks is 4 million per year. It's 270,000 in the United States, 500,000 in Europe, 550,000 in Japan, and close to 2 million, 1.5 to 2 million, depending on the year in China. So 4 million vehicles, let's say 1 megawatt pack, some are smaller, some are bigger. Let's just do it easier. 4 terawatt hours, right? So in order to electrify all the large trucks, it's 4 terawatt hours, right?
You're talking semis in this case. When you say large truck, you mean semis.
Semis, right? Semis. Yeah. So if there's 10 million Cybertruck class pickup truck, large vehicle type vehicles per year, which is about 6 million or something like that. 3 million pickups, 3 million large vehicles. Total 10 million in the world. Each one has a 100 kilowatt hour pack. Might be 200 kilowatt. Let's just say 100. Then that's 10 million. That's 1 terawatt hour, right? 10 million would be 1 terawatt hour. If it's 200, it's 2 terawatt hours. So in order to fulfill that demand, you have to go up to this massive number of terawatt hours, and you have to then half as many of those, maybe a third, maybe as many, are mega packs, fixed storage, right? Or you're doing some kind of grid thing where you're making a bunch of natural gas plants or something like that. But if it's a large chunk of that is fixed storage, solar and other things, then you have this also massive increase on that side. So that 20 terawatt hours per year, to a large chunk of that, 2/3 is large trucks, light medium trucks, and the packs to make the mega pack charging network. So right now, the Tesla has a supercharging network. There's going to be this mega charging network, which is Warren Buffett paid $8.2 billion for Pilot, which is the truck charging thing, 650 truck charging things. But the massive amount of electricity at each one, in order to handle 1,000 trucks or something like that, each charging something per year, per day, that is tens of megawatts, hundreds of megawatts that you're doing off that thing. There was a calculation from Lisbon Factor on that thing. So 20% of world oil is going to go to electricity in some form in order to move over all these trucks and vehicles. So then if Tesla goes from 50,000 vehicles in 2024 with the 40 gigawatt hours from Nevada, and then separate 10 to 20 gigawatt hours from Lathrop for the megapacks, that's to get to 50,000 vehicles per year. To get to 500,000 vehicles, that's 10 times as many. I need to 10 times as many factories or expand the factories. And I got to go for 400 gigawatt hours plus for the trucks, and another 200 gigawatt hours for the megapacks. To go to another 10x, 5 million, a mix of 4 million large trucks and some smaller trucks, I need to have that terawatt hours of stuff. So who's going to get the terawatt hours? Tesla's already at over 100 gigawatt hours last year. The next guy is half, BYD. The other guys are at like 5, 10, making their small things. They got to scale up 10x to get where Tesla is, and they got to get truck technology that they're 5 years or more behind in, 10 years more behind, and Tesla's moving away, a moving target, not just here. So the mega charging network, like if they have the mega charging network, who is the truck guy who's going to say, I'm going to buy a truck without a charging network, from some local truck, maybe.
But Brian, what you're forgetting is that Mary Barra is asking people to just voluntarily lay off. So obviously they're going to be there to take the reign here, Brian, of course. Hans, go for it.
I was just gonna say that, and that's sub-segmenting the market out and saying that we're just going to replace the existing number of trucks with electric trucks. That the EV trucks are not actually going to surpass the economics of rail and have a significantly increased demand for semi in the long run. Which, the overall tonnage of lithium and battery materials that are going to be needed to complete this transition of the world to a sustainable energy economy in the future, it really is mind-boggling.
Yeah. Hans, you wanted to hit materials, because I think Billy's saying this is probably a good segue for us to go into it. What do you think?
Yeah, so Martin Vieja posted a tweet just a couple hours ago this morning that said, if you just want one takeaway from Investor Day, make it this one. A sustainable economy will result in less mining and extraction than we currently do. 0 rare earths are needed for this transition, and too many smart people that he knows of believe the opposite of this. Yes, I think it's true, and I'm never did quite get confirmation if the existing amount of extraction that they're talking about included oil and natural gas. I assume that it did. That's pretty incredible. But what it does mean is that we have to completely redo all of our mining infrastructure, because it's not mining the same things. It's mining different things than we're currently mining. It's extracting different things than we're currently extracting. And so the amount of total infrastructure capex that's involved in transitioning us from extracting all the things that we're extracting today to extract all the things that we need to be extracting in the future to move to the sustainable energy economy, it's just an incredible amount of capex and infrastructure that needs to occur. But the rare earths thing is important because that was one of the limiting factors, the bottlenecks that a lot of people had identified, was that, hey, there's not enough of the neodymium, dysprosium, other rare earth elements that are used to make permanent magnet motors. The permanent magnet motors are the most efficient electric motors. If you don't have to actually electrically charge the rotor and have coils in that part of the electric motor to create your magnetic field, then you don't have the losses that go along with doing an electromagnet versus a permanent magnet. Then you get a little bit more efficiency out of the motor. Of course, efficiency is incredibly important when you're going with an EV drivetrain. And so if possible, it's all of the high performance motors that Tesla has put out have all been these permanent magnet motors, as compared to, they have offered induction motors in a number of their vehicles, but those have never been the performance level vehicles. And so for anything where you've got high load, like the Semi or the Cybertruck, or any sort of performance Model 3, Model Y, Model X, Model S, those are all going to use permanent magnet motors. And there's going to be lots of those applications in the future as we move to the sustainable energy economy. And so the fact that they specifically talked about at their Investor Day presentation that they were going to create a permanent magnet electric motor that used no rare earths was pretty mind-blowing. A lot of people that I've been kind of having some back channel discussions with are thinking that there could potentially be a connection between that and a company called Neuron Magnetics, which is an offshoot of a group from the University of Minnesota who's been doing research into iron nitride magnets, which they're magnets that have potentially better performance than permanent, like rare earth magnets like neodymium, but we don't have currently a technology that is known to mass manufacture. So this is basically, from what I understand, at the same place where 4680 dry battery electrode technology was when Tesla initially purchased, someone may have to help me out with.
Maxwell,
yes. When they purchased Maxwell. But the science is there that iron, basically what you're doing is you're infusing nitrogen atoms into the structure of just regular iron, and then that makes it easier, or it increases the magnetic capacity of the iron to a point where the performance surpasses rare earth magnets. And so there's a couple of different processes that they have been playing with to be able to create these iron nitride batteries, but none of them have, it's all lab scale stuff essentially. None of them have been scaled up to commercial or industrial quantities. But one of the other cool things about the iron nitride batteries is that they can be magnetized in place. So you can go ahead and have, like, you can make the magnet and then you can assemble it into whatever thing that you're going to use it for, in this case, an electric motor. And then you can magnetize the iron nitride inside the motor instead of having to work with the rare earth magnets. They're magnetized at the factory, and then you have this very strong magnet that you're having to try and assemble into a motor. And of course, it's wanting to stick to anything that hasn't magnetic field and smash things, and that's not fun. So you have to have a lot of fixtures and stuff. And so iron nitride potentially even eliminates the need to work with a strong magnet until it is located in the exact position that you want it to be in the final product that you're making.
Go ahead, Billy.
I just had a quick question of how far along that company is. You said it was kind of lab scale, like compared to their acquisition of Maxwell, Tesla's acquisition of Maxwell. They were just getting to the point where it was becoming commercially viable, right? Like coming off the bench. Is that kind of where they are?
It's hard for me to say at this point based on the limited amount of research that I've done. There are some papers that are out there about this. There's some marketing material that Neuron has made. So Neuron is the company that is made up of people from the University of Minnesota, so a bunch of professors and students who've been working on this project. So they did create a commercial offshoot of it. Rumors that I've heard are that they do not specifically intend to try and manufacture at the scale that Tesla would need. And so there would have to be some sort of licensing. And so it may be that Tesla is taking on the challenge of commercializing the manufacturing of iron nitride batteries at scale. But the fact that Tesla specifically made these claims about using these permanent magnet, non-rare earth, clean earth batteries in their motors for Gen 3 platform indicates that either they figured something out on their own, or there is already communication between Neuron and Tesla. So yeah, that's what I have been able to glean so far. And like I said, that's based on rumors, not actual confirmed facts.
Go, Kuba.
Yeah, let me ask you guys a quick question, because I was quite surprised by this tweet by Martin, because what I understood that there will be no rare earth metals included at all, not in the motors, which was clearly laid out, but also not in the batteries. But I think we do use some in the batteries currently, right? Or am I wrong?
What? I don't think he said anything about the batteries, right? Or am I wrong?
Well, that's how I interpreted it, because he said that for this transition, we will need no rare earth metals.
He does reference that slide where they're talking about the motor specifically. And honestly, I don't know what type of rare earth content there is or is not in batteries.
Go to the next couple slides, producer wife. Let's see if there's anything about a sustainable energy economy, less mineral extraction.
Because lithium iron phosphate isn't rare earth, right?
That's what I think, yeah, but still NMC does have cobalt at least, which I think is qualified as a rare earth, right?
Is cobalt the only rare earth? Go ahead, Hans.
I don't think cobalt is considered a rare earth element. So those are, neodymium, dysprosium, and...
Let's see. Any of a group of chemically similar metallic elements comprising the lanthanide series and scandium and yttrium.
So I think the Toyota Prius batteries had some lanthanum in them in the day. I don't think there's anything in the iron phosphate batteries. I don't think there's anything in the nickel NC DMA, whatever ones that Tesla's using. I don't think they have any rare earths. Someone else is saying just powertrain only, but
yeah,
I'm gonna hit
cobalt is typically referred to as a conflict mineral, but that's not the same as a rare earth element.
I want to DM Jordan Gissigi and say which rare earth minerals are in Tesla batteries. What he says. Just got Jordan on tap, y'all. Manganese might be one. Go ahead, Brian.
So I think they got cobalt out of it in the iron phosphate batteries, and also, the thing is, one great research, Hans, and then the other thing was that something that Tesla has is that because they have the most market share and are using the most batteries and stuff, anyone who has new battery, new component, new tech that would make this better would say, okay, I got to sell to the leader. Tesla adopts it faster. They'll go, if it actually is better, they'll scale it up quicker, right? So if you have breakthrough tech, you definitely want to take it to Tesla or SpaceX, right? And SpaceX did it for the ground to earth satellite stuff, and they did it for their argon ion engine, stuff like that. So they will take the leading edge stuff, and then they'll roll it in within months, a year, how long, far faster than anyone else. So all the new patents, all the new stuff goes to them. So it's like Intel being in the lead in the day before they lost stuff to TSMC, that people are coming up with germanium, other kind of semiconductors, and Intel would take that leading edge and keep adopting it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from this whole thing is just the ease of finding the materials, the affordability of getting those materials, minimizing or completely eliminating conflict minerals as much as humanly possible, and then I'm assuming these materials are also going to be relatively easy to refine and process over time with technologies that they'll build. Basically means that Tesla is securing a supply chain for the next generation of powertrains and drivetrains. That is removing the complexities. It's very, I think of it as no different than when Model S first launched and it had 1,000 options and 19 paint colors or whatever. Now you're down to like this thing that you can buy, and then the only options are very minimal, paint related or software. And so it's obvious that Tesla is applying the same sort of thought process to the drivetrain and the powertrain specifically in this case, which with the rare earth stuff, it seems like that's going to be very beneficial to simplify everything as humanly possible, which is going to maximize speed and minimize costs. And that's how you win long term, especially in the compact car market. So it's going to be very exciting. Did they say if this new powertrain is going to be in Cybertruck without any rare earths? Do you guys remember if that was mentioned on Investor? Or was that Gen 3? Maybe it was just Gen 3.
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't remember.
Okay.
It was mentioned for Cybertruck. It's in the
Let us know in
discussion
the
of the
comments.
new generation.
Okay.
But what I wanted to say also about this engine, if this is without rare earth metals, possibly it can be used for wind farms, for wind generators. And that would be
Hans
quite huge as
loves
well.
wind generators. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely could, but Hans, you brought it up in the wrong forum, man. He's going to come to your house and hunt you down.
No, that actually was a point that I made, is what, like, if they really figured this out, it's the one thing that might get them into wind generators. Like if they've got a significantly more efficient permanent magnet motor, and they have a monopoly on the iron nitride technology, that it's the one thing that I could see that might get them there. So hopefully not. That way I don't have to eat a shoe.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding us, Kuba. Hans is going to eat a shoe here. Billy, go ahead, and then we'll start our Q&A. Go for it.
Just to piggyback off that wind turbine comment, the reason they're doing the $30 a month in Texas for the subsidized charging was because of wind, right? Like Texas has so much wind blowing at night that it doesn't have anywhere to go, that it's going to be going into these car batteries, right? So maybe that is just another money-making opportunity for Tesla if they have that magnet breakthrough.
Yeah, good call. Great call. There's just so many different verticals. The thing that's, I don't think, well understood by Wall Street analysts specifically, because they treat this as a car company and Tesla's obviously anything but, is that the engineering efforts, I believe, that Tesla's putting into making stuff, period, is going to allow them to get into anything that moves or stores energy or uses energy. That seems like a gigantic market. So it's not just vehicles, it's everything. It's everything with a motor, everything with a battery. and everything that basically moves, especially if it's transportation based. So who knows, man? Who knows what other verticals we could see? Hans, and then Q&A.
I just wanted to shout out. So all that research is not just mine. Cleaner Watt was the first one that I saw mention neuron magnetics. I have since talked to some other people who were also aware of them at or before that time. Dusty Green, whose handle on Twitter is @RustyRoad. I've had some conversations with him. So these are the people that I started piecing this together from, and I wanted to make sure that people were aware of that here on the interwebs.
Shout out everybody.
I want
Go ahead,
to
Brian.
pop up one quick thing. It's non-Tesla related, but it's kind of YouTube related. Is that there was an announcement from Microsoft Germany that ChatGPT-4 or GPT-4 could come out next week, and that it will handle video. So,
oh my God.
So, in terms of like generating videos and stuff like that.
Well, it was nice knowing everybody.
Yeah.
Today will be the last video that you'll ever see on this channel. Oh man, that's scary. Okay, yeah, I'm excited to see it. Glad to see it. Thanks for making my day better, Brian.
Yeah, no worries.
Appreciate that. All right, let's show our poll that we ran earlier in the stream. We asked a very simple question. Producer wife's gonna show the results here shortly, and then before we get into thank you. Okay, but before we do that, there was some shout outs I wanted to do. I was at a middle school today doing a career fair, a job fair, where I was explaining to kids what I did for a living. And it just so happens that my passion project is my living, which is freaking cool. So I'm a YouTuber, and people were asking me, how many subs do you have? And I was like 50,000. They're like, oh, that's pretty good. Have you heard of Mr. Beast? I'm like, screw you, bro. Like, he's got like 1 million trillion freaking subscribers. But there were a few kids that wanted to be shout out on the YouTube channel, which I'm sure they won't see this, but I'll do this anyway because I'm a man of my word. I want to shout out Grayson and Isaiah. I want to shout out Hot and Spicy, HAWT, and I want to shout out the Chicken Children. So shout out to these groups. I hope y'all get all the subscribers. If they're on YouTube, go subscribe to these or don't. I don't know what's appropriate here, but shout out to these to these kids. It was awesome having talking to them and getting them caught up on some YouTube stuff. So it's just amazing how much kids love YouTube. And now with Brian's guidance, I'm not even going to need to be on YouTube because GPT-4 is going to do everything for them. So sorry, kids, for getting your hopes up for being a YouTuber in the future. All right, let's post the poll results for the Cybertruck, and then we'll get into Q&A. So we asked a very simple question. Are you buying a Cybertruck? And what's interesting about this this viewership is that a lot of us that are on these panels and a lot of us that are viewing a lot of Tesla content are Tesla owners, but there's also a significant portion of them that are not. 67% of the viewership from today are buying a Cybertruck, 32% aren't, 1% don't exist. Poll complete, 468 votes. So thank you all very much for voting. The first 45 minutes or so of this chat was all Cybertruck related. So if you are interested in viewing that, scroll back or just view this after we stop the recording. And before we get into Q&A, just a reminder that if you do Chicken Children greater than Chicken's Genius. Oh, Chicken Genius. Shout out Chicken Genius. We love you, buddy. We love you. Yeah, if you do want to join the private stream that's going to go live right after this one, it's going to be member only. Click on join right below this video to get access to member only content, and you'll also get access to our Discord channel where we talk about all kinds of stuff like this. We nerded out heavy today, which was freaking awesome, and we had over almost 1,200 people listening live at once, which is mind-blowing to me. So thank you all very much for joining us today. But if you do want to nerd out more, consider becoming joining right below this video. All right, let's do some Q&A for the last 15 minutes or so, and then we'll go to member only. First question, please. Hanif, I hope that's how you pronounce it. Question: which Tesla will be the final nail in the coffin for GM Cybertruck or the compact Tesla? GM makes most of its money with the Cybertruck and its pickup trucks and SUVs, so I wouldn't be surprised if Cybertruck is the nail, is the coffin, and then the compact is the nail. How do you guys view that? Any additional comments? Oh,
I think it's Cybertruck. Cybertruck, yeah, Cybertruck's the thing.
Everybody else agree? I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah, because they would have to survive until the compact comes out for it to be the nail.
Yeah, we'll see how much the government wants to bail them out. That's really the only variable here, and how long they'll last. But we'll see. They might just keep asking people to leave that they don't even know exists. So who knows? Maybe that's how they'll fix themselves. Next question, please. Mark, question: how long is it going to take to make 500,000 Cybertrucks? Great question. Let's go around the horn. Hans, you go first. And then we'll go around the horn. What do you think?
Can you restate the question? Sorry.
No, it's all good. How long is it going to take to make 500,000 Cybertrucks?
2 years from the beginning of production. So I think that they'll be ramped up, hopefully 50,000 or 250,000 in 2024. Maybe 200, maybe a little less than 200. Maybe between this year and the end of 2024, 250,000, and then another 250,000 in 2025. So maybe 2.5 years.
Billy?
I'm going to say 2026 for cumulative production, because the ramp, I think, is going to be a lot slower than we've seen for like Y and 3, because it's just so many new technologies going into it with the exoskeleton and everything. So I think it's going to be like 10,000 this year at most, maybe 100,000 next year. I think it's going to be a slower ramp up than other Tesla products, but still better than any other competition.
Okay. Kuba?
I'm gonna have faith. I'm gonna say sometime in 25, because I think they've been in development with the Cybertruck for quite some time. So I'm hoping that they've already figured out some of the issues on paper and in some test lines. So hopefully it won't be that bad.
Brian?
Yeah, I can easily see, the 2026 unfortunately happening, but I'm also thinking that 2025 will be the case because, because for the reasons already stated.
Okay. I'm going to give an answer on my behalf. I'm going to say end of 2026. I'm going to be a little bit more bearish than y'all. And I'm going to give an answer on behalf of Adam Jonas and say 2032. Next question, please. Mark, will Starlink help to navigate autonomous cars in the future, like fly-by-wire done remotely? Ooh. How do you guys think about this question?
So I don't think that you'd want to have that lag because Starlink, 400 miles away, right? So you'd have, some lags in doing it. And also, any disruption in communication, and that would mess things up. But Starlink can add centimeter scale GPS because of there was a thing we could add software and get highly accurate GPS. And if you get like 20,000, 100,000 up there, then you'd have hyper accurate, hyper secure GPS. So Starlink will change how you have robots or self-driving vehicles in the wild. It will be you have something in the lab that I need to precise position, precise whatever. You can make the whole world have that kind of accurate location stuff.
Any other thoughts from the panel?
From my understanding, it won't be super helpful in like urban areas where I think robotaxis will probably be used the most, because the whole benefit of Starlink starts going away when you get more condensed or more density of people using the technology. So I don't know if it would make sense, because it would seem weird for them to use it just in rural areas and not in urban areas where they're going to be making the bulk of their money from that autonomous driving.
Okay.
There was a really good interview the other day on Friday with Herbert. He had a guest on, Julian. He's a French guy, pilot, and also a developer who's got a startup that does some really cool stuff. He's made a way to visualize all the Starlink satellites. But anyways, he's pretty deep into all the Starlink tech, and he said that he expects Tesla to integrate an in-glass antenna on their future vehicles to actually be able to do a lot of direct communication with Starlink. So I think this is the case that he made was a pretty strong case. And so I would say that it's highly likely that at least Tesla, if not other vehicles, will have some integrations with Starlink. Now, whether that is actual remote fly-by-wire technology or if it's just some more of, location assistance or some other things, that's kind of remains to be seen in my opinion. But yeah, I definitely agree that Starlink will be involved in some ways in that.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this topic? All right. Next question, please. Ba-ba-da-da. And Per Johan, question. He's got a little symbol because he's a member of the community. Thank you so much, man, for supporting the channel. As EVs get more common, with the less demand for oil, lower gas prices, and lower used ICE car prices, and so a little rebirth for. Okay, let me read this question. As EVs get more common, will the lower demand for oil, lower gas prices, and lower used ICE car prices, and so you'll have a little rebirth for ICEs, meaning that the cost of ownership, because there's going to be so little demand for the oil, is going to cause gas cars to be popular again. How do you guys think about this question? I have some thoughts, but I'm curious to see what you all think.
So, like I said, you can eliminate the oil for trucks and stuff like that, and transportation. They had the slide in the thing where they said, okay, so much for transportation, so much for HVAC and stuff like that. But the thing is, then you still hit the base of you need to use the oil for plastics, and there's other uses for oil. The other thing would be that if you get robo trucking and robo taxi, and you have the hyper efficiency, so you take the cost of supply chain from 10% of goods that you buy from Amazon and other places down to 1%, right? You have this massive economic boost across the board, value added tax of 9% cut. And then other things in terms of movement, other things become far more efficient, far better. That would be a massive economic boom. So ARK Invest in their big ideas thing talks about getting to a $400 trillion economy with just, generative AI and other things there and some robotics, which is an extra doubling, right? So if you start getting this, if things really start hitting and you start boosting it up, you can go beyond to growing the economy 10x and doing some other stuff like that. So then oil, even though you drop it down by demand by half, say, if you double the economy, quadruple the economy, oil demand could then go back up because you've made the overall economy so big. It's just like we use 15 times more oil than we did during World War II, right? So it's if your economy is huge, then you use more.
Any other thoughts?
I think you could argue that as the demand for oil decreases, the supply might also decrease. So not necessarily the price might stay on the similar level. But it's not a strong argument that I have for that, but it's just one possibility.
Okay.
There are definitely a lot of sources that don't work out economically below a certain price point. And so, I would definitely say that supply will decrease below certain prices. I think, it's an interesting thing to think about. The main path forward for ICE manufacturers who have their eyes open is still autonomy. The value of an autonomous ICE car is significantly greater than the value of a non-autonomous ICE car. And so any vehicle manufacturers who are able to quickly follow Tesla in their ability to roll out a robotaxi or even just, a good level 3 or level 4 system, has the opportunity to definitely pad their cash flow and bridge their transition to EV. So anyways, that's kind of the first place my mind goes to when I think about that question.
Okay.
My thought on it was that just it's going to depend on policy, because we know that oil is subsidized so heavily today, and especially at Investor Day they talked about how, hey, this transition to EVs or a fully sustainable economy will be cheaper than just doing business as usual. It depends if people vote for that kind of future. It depends on if our politicians want to continue subsidizing oil as much as they have been, because I mean, there's that oil is only so cheap because we're all paying for it, whether we use it or not in some degrees. So I think it really depends on what governments of the world decide to do.
The way I think about it is the EV is going to be cheaper to manufacture long term because there's less parts involved. So that's one. Number two is the less gas cars on the road, the more gas stations go out of business because they literally have no customers coming to their gas stations, especially if they don't have a charger. And the less of those you have, the less convenient it is to have a gas car, and the less convenient it is to have a gas car, the less incentive there is for somebody to buy a gas car. So that's how I think about this. So I think once that ball gets rolling, you will not be able to reverse it. And it doesn't matter how much you subsidize it for. Literally the only place you can charge your gas car is at a gas station, where you can charge your EV basically anywhere. So that in itself will ensure that ICE will never come back, just because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. That's how I think about it. All right, let's do a couple more. Next question. And Tony, question. Do you think that installation of public-facing Tesla Level 2 chargers will outpace superchargers? What opportunities does the Level 2 network present for Tesla as far as cross-marketing and sales? So the Level 2 chargers, for those that are not interested, is basically like a slower charger that won't get you up to, say, 80% in 30 minutes or 20 minutes, but it'll give you a charge that's pretty good. It's like an overnight charge, like at a hotel or something. How do you guys think about that question? Any comments? Any thoughts?
Like I see this mega charging level coming in. So you have superchargers, the level 2 chargers where you have like everyone's solar house has stuff, or you have a business with some solar. It'll be there. It will make things available when you have a lot of time, where it's like, okay, I'm stopping someplace, I'm staying there overnight, hotels, other things like that. So that will be there. But I think you don't have slow fueling gas stations, right? So you'll go to, if you have the mega charging thing, you'll go to the faster charging thing. Other than at home, where it's overnight. So that's the at-home market, I think.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this one?
I think long-term it will outpace the superchargers when the cost of electricity gets so flippin' cheap that businesses will be handing it away, kind of like Wi-Fi, where they're trying to get customers in for any reason. That's kind of what Tony Seba was saying back in his Rethink X a few years ago. Well, that once that cost of electricity is so low, there's going to be these novel ways that we can use electricity that people aren't, just like how Wi-Fi is today, like to get people into your coffee shop. They'll put these level 2 chargers in front of a Starbucks just to get you in the door.
Yeah, that's a great point. I agree with that too. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll go to members only. And I always wanted to say OnlyFans, but I'm not going to say it. Jay Lizard, question. Jay Lizard, longtime listener. Appreciate you, brother. Could not using rare earth metals in Tesla lead to more of it being available for semiconductor chips, drastically lowering the prices? Interesting question, because a lot of those rare earth metals are used in chips as well. So opening up the supply chain. Well, I guess it depends, right? Because if the supply goes up for those, because you still need those rare earths for the battery and those I don't know. I guess they changed their strategy completely on the motors, but the battery should still use some of them. So it depends what the what is the total demand in the next 10 years, and how does that influence the supply of those rare earth, right? That's how I think about it. How do you guys think about it? Stuff to think through.
I'm reading this as him saying that the price of chips will go down because there will be an increased supply of rare earth metals that are available for chips.
Sorry.
I think that makes sense. The question is, what percentage of the chip cost is due to rare earth metals? So it might make them cheaper, but if rare earth metals are only 1% of the cost of a chip, then it won't be a huge noticeable difference. I don't know.
Call.
What do you think, Brian?
I misread that.
I think it could also be, do you use rare earths more for power chips or for other kinds of semiconductor chips? Like germanium, other thing like that, or, so it will have an impact, but I don't think it's as much as a recession or something like that. I think it'd be that there's bigger impacts that affected. Long term, the shortage thing is taken off the table. So, but I'm not sure how much, like I said, how much of an impact right now.
The other thing is, if Tesla can scale up this new iron nitride, assuming, presumably iron nitride iron nitride magnet to be used in all of their motors, and that is the motor that ends up getting us to 20 million units. That's a lot of capacity, and that means those magnets are probably significantly cheaper to make than any type of rare earth magnet. And so it probably ends up then being introduced into the supply chain for chips as well. And so they would probably convert over to iron nitride magnets for chip making.
Okay. Any last comments before we wrap this sucker up and go to member only? All right. Well, thank you all very much for sticking with us today. Very nerdy panel. I love this one. This one was like super nerdy, intense. I loved it. I hope it was of value and informative to everybody listening. We're going to switch over to our member-only stream now, which will be on YouTube as well. And then if you do become a member by clicking on join right below this video, you'll have access to come on these public forums, as well as viewing and joining the member-only content that we're going to be going to in about 2 minutes here. So I want to thank everybody that's taken part today. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Hit the like, just like producer wife is asking you all to do if you're enjoying the stream. Hans, Billy, Brian, Kuba, thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you to everybody in the comment section and watching at home for always keeping the comment section super respectful and filled with great commentary and questions. I think we have the best community on the internet. I'm biased, but I think it's true. And then mods, thank you so much again for keeping the comment section awesome and ensuring everybody's having a good time. And last but not least, of course, producer wife, thank you so much. Great job. Love you, baby. You're a rock star. And we'll see you guys around. We're switching over to member only. If you're joined already, you'll see it come up. And then you'll also be able to connect your YouTube directly to Discord to join us there as well. All right. We'll see you in a little bit. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.